empowering you into alignment for 2026. In this video, I'm going to share just a few tips to help you feel more alignment with the year ahead and to help you feel more empowered, which I think is really, really important at this time. And that is also, which I really, really think is important, is also really going inwards and listening to your intuition and discernment. So I want to wish you a blessed new year, and I do really hope that 2026 is filled with peace, strength, and many, many blessings. Now, the reason I'm going to talk a little bit about 2025, and I think there's themes in 2025 that are really important to all of us. And, 2026 is all about us stepping more into alignment and letting go of what is false and actually leaning in and actually discerning what is false and what is truth. And it's not always easy. And if we look at even 2025, we're starting to see a lot more people becoming even more awakened to what is not truth and what is maybe just false narratives, projections, or just a story or someone else's projection. And, one of the things that I know, even when I went down the stress management route and, I was very into the holistic route, I always knew it was very important to help people with anxiety and stress and to get back and live a more aligned life that is healthy for them. That it's really important to look at things from a holistic perspective, look at life from the mind, the body, the emotions and spirit. It's one of the things that I had to start learning very early on, and I've certainly not mastered it. And it's like everything, it takes time, and there's different areas in our life that we find easier than others, and that's what it is. But one of the things that I treasure a lot is, my intuition. And yeah, I'm like everyone sometimes. I don't go by it, or a lot of other people gaslight me and whatever, but I do know that listening to your intuition and learning how to discern what is intuition and what is just a belief, what is just an opinion, what is formed from certain conditioning patterns, and what is more inner guidance. There can be a difference, and I do think that 2026 is going to be it's going to take us that, it's going to take us to a new level of having to really do that, to make a lot of decisions in our personal life, but to make big changes. We know what's going on in the world at the moment, and there's a lot of power structures. There's also being a lot being unveiled, but again, when truth is being unveiled, there is always people that don't want people knowing the truth, because when we have truth, often we have more power and we can see truth and we can get more clarity, we can solve problems. But when certain things are hidden, we can't do anything about it. And I've shared in some of my email lists, and I will be putting this out with some. There is one of my email lists, the Stress Coach Training, I haven't really got to, and I'll explain a little bit more why. But one of the big reveals for me in 2023 was another really important missing piece of the jigsaw in relation to my health. Part of it was, something that I've kind of always knew and kind of hit my head off a brick wall in regard to the medical profession, and I just stopped even mentioning some aspects of it because nobody was listening. But I discovered that I had some structural issues that the mainstream, I've always had a condition for a baby that are young, that, formed when I was young, that created some rare complications, and nobody was quite sure, was it congenital, was it something that happened pre-birth, genetics, or is it something that was structural? And that's a whole other story about that. But one of the interesting things for me was, a new piece of technology. And even though this technology has been out, I think, in Canada and America a bit earlier, it came to Edinburgh this year, and it, reminded me of how sometimes it's like a new piece of information. And it's like even in the holistic world and this, spiritual perspectives, we can have all these ideas, and sometimes somebody else brings something else forward, and it can really open us and make us look at things from a wider or deeper perspective. But some things are just faddy. Some things come out and they're just the latest opinion. Now, there might be some truth in that, but there might be also false. Or they might make 90% truth and 10% false. And I've seen over the last 35 years so many fads of medical conditions, names for medical conditions, terms in the mainstream medicine. And because I've had a lot of rare things, and also things that are more chronic, regarded as more common or widely known. But I've also been on the holistic perspective of seeing that. And I have to be honest, the holistic perspective were always quite, saw a lot of things that I had and challenges that I had before mainstream. They were often 20 years ahead. Now, it was certain people who really were thorough, really did their work deeply, and they didn't have an agenda. They would look at things from a wide perspective. Now, one of the biggest challenges we have, particularly a lot in the online world right now, and it's related to every industry. It's, the medical industry, the health and welfare industry, the sports industry, even the technologies industry, everything. Other than the spiritual industry, everyone has an opinion. And every opinion doesn't mean it might be their truth in some level, but does it mean it's 100% truth? No, it doesn't. And we can all have opinions of things. But when we're so closed and we're so fixed in a certain opinion about something or a belief about someone or something or whatever, what happens, it gets us stuck in actually being able to see what is truth and what is not truth. Now, you might not like someone and they might tell you something that is truthful. There might be something in it that's 5% not truth, but actually 95% of the truth is there. Because you don't like that, or you don't like what that persona represents, you don't want to listen to them. It's the same with family. A lot of people say, and one of my brothers recently, he's been doing a lot of different things, more spiritual work, and had said, things now I appreciate about what you do and different things, and I never saw things a certain way, and I didn't listen because you're my sibling. That's normal. We don't listen to our siblings. We don't always maybe have the same, I don't mean respect, you just look at them differently. Now, I believe that part of empowerment for 2025 is going in more. And actually really learning what discernment and intuition truly means, right, for you. And one of the most important things that I see a lot is, even if you think you're very intuitive, be careful that you're not projecting on clients you think is your intuition. It might not. I spent most of my life having medical professions. There was a lot who they didn't label maybe certain things because they just didn't know, and they were honest, and that's far more easier when someone says, I don't know, but than people putting a label on it that doesn't belong to you and trying to, or putting a category because it's too much work. Now, it's easy for humanity. I do work with archetypes. I think we're very powerful. But it's easy for people to put things into one category and label it in a certain character because it makes them more comfortable. And I do believe that 2026, part of empowerment is actually coming out of comfort zone in many ways. And I know we've not really been in a comfort zone, but what I mean is learning to be more comfortable about challenges and looking at things from a wider perspective. I went to this chiropractor, a new type of upper cervical chiropractor, which is gentle manipulation, for a scan, looking to see what was going on in my skull. And was curious about my ear, because this horrendous pain in my ear when I certain decibels of sound, and it's not even sound, vibration, particularly anything that comes near me, the right side, or certain parts of the head, or vibration, what it was doing to my body. What I didn't expect was out of that scan to see what was not this person's, area of work. So they were limited to what they could do or say about it. It was me that actually had to point it out. It was very obvious in the scan, this large, huge bone moving from here right down into my neck, which explained many of the symptoms that I was gaslit from years about. And this is an example, in many ways it was, anybody looking at it would say, well, considering a lot of the challenges I had, jaw area, I had horrendous ear pain, and I was also for 12 years, some of you might be shocked at this, but would go to bed supporting my jaw. I thought it was to do with me having no teeth at the bottom here, and I had problems with plates. That's a whole long story because of a lot of dental complications. Now, this is an example of sometimes, so what I'll add to this was there was still a specialist who tried to imply that this would not cause me any problems. A large bone and a calcification around a jaw area, and further down in some calcification, different areas in my neck, and was trying to label something on him just because his first time he saw me, before he even looked at anything, wanted to ask me anything, wanted a certain label. And empowerment, first of all, is about us trusting ourselves. Believe me, it's not always been easy for me to trust myself. I trust myself to some degree, and I've still kept my sanity to a certain degree, and a lot of relatives and friends and family will vouch for that. Sometimes they're horrifying to some of the things that I've had to go through, but one of the biggest things, as we've got to remember, is society, media, all sorts of things are designed to gaslight people, designed to question the reality, question their own opinion, and one of it is about our own sovereignty. We all have the right to our own sovereignty, and we all have the right to certain opinions, and to how to live our life, and to discern what is right for us. But that is such a big thing at the moment. Now, thankfully, the masses are waking up, and the masses are saying, no, I want my sovereignty, and I want my power. I'm not giving it over to you. But how do you get into more alignment with empowerment? How do you get in more alignment so that you're not you're not crippled by the fear that they're trying to project onto people? Well, you make a deeper soul connection. You make a deeper connection with yourself, and you can do that with getting into meditation, particularly. I always say to people, guided meditations and everything can be helpful. But one of the things is people can get lazy. But when you learn more traditional type meditations that help you build up more stillness or space or focus, that'll help you become more disciplined. The problem is most people are struggling with focus right now. Even those as a disciplined meditators, because of the amount of information overload. When your focus starts to go and your discipline starts to go, it's very, very hard to discern between energy, discern between intuition, and to discern by your emotional reactions to things. Now, I'm very intuitive, but I'm also very emotional. I'm a bit of I'm working on it. I maybe shouldn't put that out there, but I've always been a bit of a softie, and fell for sob stories and all that. It's a very empathic to maybe not healthy degree. But there's also been a lot of gifts in that, and a lot of learning out of that and discernment out of that. And the first thing is when you become more I'm going to say the word mindful, but I do think there's mindfulness and soul around. There's a slight difference, and I'll explain. But when you become more mindful in the respect that you're more mindful of what's going on with your emotions and mindful of your reactions, a lot of people that are highly sensitive and highly empathic can see the world as completely horrendous. but they've got to have the detachment to recognise when, we're taking on other people's stuff and all sorts of things, and there's layers to that. The shadow element, just like lots of layers. But there's also a gift, some people say the empath, it's just trauma. But the reality is the empath can share a lot of gifts and see and sense things in a way and notice things that other people, it's just one of those, like the sensitive, there's an aspect of, there's a gift in it, and there's ways that they can create solutions for certain things and see things through a different lens. And that's why every archetype has its strength. It has a different part of the jigsaw to play in the world. And it's like, if you look at the sage archetype, a lot of the certain types of sage, when we look at the sage, there's a more objectivity. There's that they can look at things from an objective point of view. They're not emotionally attached. And then if we look at the leader, the more sovereign leader, leads by example, leads people towards success. It's not about ego. It's not about just them gaining financial wealth or status. They lead because they want to lead and help, empower people to up to the level of what they've attained or more. They're good at people at leading by example. And the shadow elements, it's people that just want to, feel egoic that they are more clever, more important, more whatever, or more powerful than other people, or be seen to be the leader. They're that kind of thing. Now, we all have these different elements, but the power first has to start was being more mindful in relation to slowing down, taking the space. We live in a world that encourages constantly to chase thing to thing, to focus on thing to thing, to rush to work, to rush to do this. You have to be this, you have to be that, you have to be more of something. When actually, when you strip it back and you slow down, you often achieve more, and it's far more powerful and concise. So slow down and learn things like meditation. And even if you struggle, I have a free 5-minute meditation that became the most popular meditation that I taught with all sorts of people who've got ADHD, executives that didn't have time, busy mothers, people that are caregivers that were caring for not, just one to many people and were struggling to have any, time in their day. That's a way to start. Now, getting more soul aligned is about you really feeling into what you're really here for, but also like making a deeper connection at a deeper level, that you feel this channel of power and strength and alignment, that you don't have to. It helps you be more resilient to the external world. Now, I'm not saying we all fall in and out of that, but the way you can get heart and soul aligned, you just feel more stronger. You're not as attached to the material world, so you're not as emotionally triangulated by it, you make better, healthier decisions and wiser decisions, because you're not just making them out of fear or just because the rest of everybody else. You don't become the sheep, and you don't just jump and do things to that. And I think that's really important for lots of reasons. We look at even the involvement of AI now. I'm not saying all of AI is all negative. There's some aspects of it can be helpful for certain things. What people forget is we already have been using AI for Google searches and Facebook and all that. It is a form of AI. But the reality is many people are becoming dependent on it in a way that they're losing their intuition. They're not expanding their brain. They're becoming less creative. And things are coming out, and even no matter how many prompts and different angles, it's either taking other people's work. Something come up and showed me, I tested it out for some things, and a few other people could tell me that certain things were getting pulled out and getting used. It was my work. And this is an example of where people are losing their creative license. And I do think the problem with it is that nothing's going to be almost trademarked. People have done, dedicated their life to certain things. AI is trying to almost overpower that, and it's almost trying to mimic us. And is that good? Well, that's up to you. You have to think of that as, again, there's a certain amount of discernment. But one of the things that I've had to do, and this is part of this video, is actually the stress coach training students, was that I had to make a big decision about the stress coach training. There was a lot of things I did, and I loved doing that. But there was other things that was getting harder for me when I started having real cranial compression and real serious which really felt I could feel this pressure in my head, and the neurological challenges were so disabling. And I realised I had to start making things a wee bit easier for me, and there were some things that could be more challenging to teach and needed a lot more bandwidth. So there's a lot of things I'm doing now that has less bandwidth and also feels more aligned. Sometimes certain things happen to move. So the offerings that I have now are actually part of a community, and there's going to be a lot of other people involved. And part of that is both the Heart Hub and the Soul Hub. And the Heart Hub will be run mostly by myself and David Vaughan, who's a good friend. A lot of you know David. And to let you get a bit of background, David has been studying nearly as long as me in the healing, the spiritual field. He's a trained pharmacist, and I know it's a bit of a contrast, but he also has trained with some of the most amazing spiritual teachers and healers around the world, and has a level of awareness and awakening. He's taught me a lot of things through the years and helped me expand and grow. But one of the things that David has a gift in is the ability. Can really help people get into stillness, and he's a stabilizer, an energetic stabilizer. When you're around David, you understand that. That's why he's one of the few people. When my nervous system has been going through the roof, and I've had through a lot of challenges, because one of the biggest challenges with this thing that I had was it seems to be a pressing on the vagus nerve and major arteries, which would cause me a lot of symptoms. This is what this type of condition does. Now, and anybody who knows me knows that I've been through a lot of periods where my nervous system has been very overloaded with all sorts of challenges I've had, and you've had viruses and bacteria, things that have attacked the nervous system as well, but it can be challenging. Now, so he's a great at stabilising energy and being a stabilising and grounding force, which I think a lot of empathic healers, I tend to interact a lot with empathic healers and people that are very energetically and sensitive, aware. And he's going to be coming in and doing bi-weekly at the moment and Sunday stillness, partly because he was going to be doing things anyway, but it's also to help me out because I've had a lot of throat challenges with this bone. It's getting harder and harder for me to do a full meditation. I start losing my voice, or I start choking, which is not something you can do during a meditation. So David's going to be doing the bi-weekly Sunday stillness, and we're also both going to be doing kind of remote healing inside the Heart Hub community. Now, the Heart Hub, other than the meditation, the actual life healing meditations, I've added a lot of different spiritual courses and resources. And depending on what package, if you go for the monthly, you get access to certain things. If you go for the yearly package, you get access to a plethora of other things. And there's new other things that I'm actually going to be moving. I've got a lot of courses, but there's some of them I want to upgrade and tweak before I move. So that gives you an idea. Now, the Soul Hub is for those of you that are soulpreneurs, heartpreneurs, who are looking for connection and community, but also a space where you can get access to different business and marketing courses that are particularly aimed at helping you be more creative. I do believe that part of moving in the future is helping business owners get more creative in their business and their marketing in an aligned way, and not have to rely on completely artificial and synthetic things for their ideas, so that they're not just reproducing whatever else, but actually really tap into their creativity, but also use each other's knowledge and gifts in a way. And that's why we have the monthly brainstorming and co-creation session. I do hope to add some other things in, but I'm trying to do things in baby steps at the moment. So we've got the monthly brainstorming co-creation session, and also at the moment what I'm doing is every month I just offer something different that I think that my group needs. And in January I'm running it's actually running at the kind of 6 to 8 rate, running at 7 for bonuses if people want to join. Inside the Soul Hub community, I have a Pinterest marketing course, and the reason we're doing that not to bore the rest of these that are not interested, is that most business owners at the moment are really struggling to be seen visible. There's, it's just a plethora of information. And for small business owners that don't have a huge, big market budget, it's killing a lot of businesses. And I understand that there's a lot of small businesses who really want to help people. They've not got big budgets like big other companies. And a lot of them are not. They don't want to be high-end coaches, and they don't want that energy. They just want to help certain types of people, so they don't have that big marketing budget. So Pinterest is great for certain types of things, and I'm going to be doing a Pinterest course. So if you join the Soul Hub right away, you'll be able to join us next week. There'll be little videos inside the community, and and the way it's designed is so that you can help each other to build your Pinterest boards up, and I'll explain how that works. So I'd like to end this session to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for all my audience, anyone who's ever supported, liked, followed me, engaged, because all of this, more than ever, I was one of the people who get a lot of censorship through the last 4 or 5 years about my opinions, my ideology, and some of the things, sadly, that I saw in people I knew. And I'm not going into what that was, but also I had students that came, past students who came to me for advice about people that were damaged by something, and people were facing terrible discrimination, abuse, and I was speaking out, and unfortunately I faced a lot of censorship for a lot of that. And that's meant that, like a lot of us, our social media platforms have took a hit. Even though I've got a lot of followers on some of my accounts, it's not always been seen. So I want to thank everyone that's ever supported me, who has, bought my products, signed up and trusted me to work with me. It's been a blessing. I've met so many wonderful people, and had the honour to support so many of you who are amazing healers and therapists and coaches who are out there doing amazing work, and you're so needed right now. But it's important that you focus on your own self-care, because, to support people at these times, it's not easy. And that is why the Heart Hub and the Soul Hub was created. It's because I want a space where people can feel they get that alignment, that healing, that self-care when they need it. So the Heart Hub is the self-care, the healing, the heart coherence, as David says, the soul alignment. And the Soul Hub is for those of you who need that business support and are looking for different ways to grow your business, but also maybe to reduce costs or find unique ways of doing things a lot more simpler, more efficient. Have an amazing 2026. And remember to get an empowerment, to get an alignment. It's first of all, it's connect with self. Make time to connect with self. Build that connection with your heart and your soul. When you do that, it's far easier to feel empowered and to trust yourself, and to not allow other people to gaslight you or to misalign you into a direction that's not for you, or make decisions that's not right for you. Bye-bye.